Hi, welcome everyone to the Blocks webinar on custody and wallet infrastructure. We're going to just give it maybe 30 seconds just as a few people trickle in. It already looks like we had a few people in the waiting room, but I find connecting to this webinar browser can sometimes have like a minute or two gap. So we can kick it off in about 30 seconds. All right, cool. It looks like those people were just admitted. So again, I want to welcome everyone to today's panel discussion. We're going to be talking a little bit about the gaps and opportunities in the crypto custody and wallet infrastructure space. So some of those topics are going to be about the user experience of wallets and custody solutions. We're going to be talking a little bit about, some more technical concepts like security, compliance and design, decentralization, and really kind of like how users are interacting with these solutions, how that's kind of progressed from a historical perspective and where we might be going there. So we're joined with 4 panelists today. I think the best way, rather than me butchering any introductions, would be having everyone just give like a brief intro to what you do and what firm you represent, and any other kind of like relevant detail about what you may bring to the custody discussion. So let's start with Jess.
Okay, thank you, George. Hi, everyone. I'm Jess from Hood Protocol, and what we do is our mission is to bring the next billions onto Web3, right? That's what everyone's talking about, the mass adoption. And we're going at this mission from the angle of education, because what we believe is like right now there's a huge knowledge gap and experience gap, and that's what's preventing people from getting to know more and empowering them to explore the space more. So what we're doing now is we're building one of the biggest education and entertainment network to bring people more on board. And while doing so, by providing the most seamless onboarding experiences for users and businesses as well, to put the ecosystem together. But our key angle is to onboard the billions, providing them with the education angle. Thank you.
Great. Let's just go down the line. Tom, you want to go next?
Sure. Hey, everyone. I'm Tom Schmidt. I'm a general partner at Dragonfly. We're a global crypto venture fund. We've been around since 2018. We only invest in crypto-related companies and protocols, and we have sort of a global focus. So we have about half the team in the US, half the team in Asia, and try to back maybe the best teams in the space.
Great. Hayden?
Oh, yeah. Great to meet everyone. I'm Hayden from Particle Network. So what we build is a whole bunch of comprehensive solutions for Web3 application development. And our products include secure authentication and a wallet as a service middleware powered by MPC, and enabling developers to integrate authentication and the full wallet functionalities into their application with ease. And we also offer a one-stop NFT solution and node RPC and data API services, simplifying the process for building and operating the apps. So overall, our middlewares have demonstrated remarkable results in boosting the user conversion rate, increasing it from 15 to 20% to 90 to 95%. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Hello, hey guys, my name is Junda, or you can also call me JD. So I head up the global sales team at Kobo. So Kobo, we are the largest digital assets custodian from Asia Pacific, with billions of dollars of worth of assets under custody. And we're headquartered in Singapore. We're licensed in 5 jurisdictions, including Singapore and Hong Kong. We've been securing customer funds with zero security incidents for the past 6 years. And today we provide the full suite of custody solutions, including a decentralized NPC custody technology, a licensed centralized full custody, off-exchange settlement solution called Superloop, and we also have a wallet as a service development API that supports over 70 chains and 1,800 coins.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I think the best place to start is probably with the problem statement. And Jess, I'd love to start with you because from my understanding, you're working with both Web2 and Web3 companies. And, it's clear that there's, a bit of a gap in the user experience there and how, they're connecting with applications. So I was wondering if you could just kick us off by speaking to that gap a little bit more. Oh, Jess, you're on mute.
Yeah, so just to avoid echoes, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like I'm back in the quarantine time where it's like everyone's like on Zoom time. Okay, so that's a very interesting question. Thanks, George. Myself, coming from also one of the biggest Web2 companies prior to jumping head on into Web3, is that we, as the users of today, our experience is pretty much defined by this centralized Web2 giants, right? Like the Google, Meta, and Amazons of the world. Like, we pretty much understand how to log in with a Facebook, log in with our Google, and then punch in our credit card and then get a services done. Like the whole experience is there's a consensus between the service providers and the users. And that doesn't really exist in Web3 yet, right? The whole onboarding journey is very arduous and is very segmented. Each of us get onto the space through different routes, right? There's no a very systematic way to learn about the space and to have enough confidence and with a safeguarding hand to navigate the space of Web3. So that's one of the gap that we see is the general user knowledge gap to navigate the complexity of the system. And on the other hand, we do have the builder problem where we have right now, the onboarding experience is very clunky and arduous and full of pitfalls. As a Web2 users, looking into the abyss, there's a lot of negative news and scary stories of people getting scammed and just security issues. So the Web2 and Web3 worlds where as of now, we see they're looking into very different directions. There is a general nonchalance or fear from the Web2 side and from the Web3 side, especially on the degen side, right? We're running and we're building the next civilization. We're defining how to distribute wealth and creating a new governance model. But there's actually so much we learn and leverage in between those two worlds. And this is what we see we could do here. One is to bridge the knowledge gap by providing fun to engage and intuitive educational tools on our own hook system. We actually enjoyed our initial debut success with our already 3 apps in the ecosystem. We have a Wild Cash app, which we enjoy over 3 million active monthly users by providing this fun to engage quiz to earn games. And we have this online real person quiz to earn game shows, catering to those who know a little bit about the space already, but prefer of a face-to-face human interaction. And we also have just launched a self-guided AI-empowered education system. So it's called Hooked Academy. And you can like pick and choose and learn according to your own style. So by providing this ensuite of educational games and experiences, we want to bridge the knowledge gap. And at the same time, in the back end, what we don't see is while going on this journey, by default, you'll be having your first DID, you'll be having your first wallet. Shout out to our partner Kobo here, whose technology and services we leverage to build that experience. So in the back end, we seamlessly plug into this partners network to make their onboarding experience seamless and intuitive. So that's how we see the current gap is and how we play a role into bridging the knowledge and experience gap.
Got it. And before we go to JD, I also want to get Hayden's perspective, as someone who's like building tooling and solutions for like third parties to build apps. What kind of challenges do you see like your customers facing, and how are you like building against that?
Yeah, so definitely for the current mass adoption challenges, like it actually locates into two perspectives. So for our client, most of them having challenges so that how to onboard users smoothly. So because most of the infrastructure nowadays that the user is getting hands-on with is still very built not that user-friendly, especially when you are asking Web2 users to learn what is the private key, how to memorize, have to ask them to memorize all the seed phrase before getting started use app for what you have been built. That's kind of ridiculous, because really if the user going to play any Web2 products, most likely they can start to working on with the actual business logic within 10 seconds after the login process. But for now, our Web3 process for login is kind of broken. So we had a lot of conversation in the past and did a lot of brainstorming on what actually the user is asking for. So we did a lot of like research, then finally choosing to build some solution that is embedded with MPC, so that we can basically leverage the nature of that technology, as well as to allow the user to have their self-autonomy to control their assets well. Using this technology, we don't have to rely on a specific private key to generate all the interaction on the blockchain. So they can use their social accounts to use as encryption method for keeping their own secret shards. So what do we actually describe MPC is basically we distributing the whole process of signing a blockchain signature into different places, while one could be the user's end, while the user's end can be encrypted by their own accounts. So that makes the overall social login possible. So by using these technologies, we kind of like tackle the issue on a smooth user login process, while also maintain the user's self kind of autonomy by owning their own assets, because it's kind of the way, because we don't have any control, because we cannot be the one who initiate the signature process. So that's kind of like address the overall thing when they're building the app for people to log in with their familiar methods. And another thing is about the developer experience, because in the current situation of the blockchain industry, everyone is building their own public chain, their own layer 1, layer 2. You have to get familiar with what, firstly, a EVM blockchain is like. Then you have to learn all the others different non-EVM architecture if you wanted to go to different market sector, because every chain has its own users. But in this condition, it's very hard for the normal developer, especially who are new to blockchain, to start building something meaningful, because usually they may take months, or half a year to start getting learning or get understanding what everything going on under the hood. So we kind of realize that, because in the past we also trying to build something, but it really takes a lot of time for us to even everything that's under the complexity. So because we have undergoing that, we feel that it's meaningful to encapsulate all the stuff, all the heavy lifting for our developers. So we did a lot of efforts on building all compatible SDKs and the methods, so that for whoever wants to build the application on different platforms, not only on web end, but also on mobile, as also on the game engine, they can easily to build up their application by just invoking some API or SDK. So yeah, that's what kind of like the market demand that we have been spotted and did a lot of efforts on optimizing it. Yeah, thank you.
Interesting. And I want to dive into some of those, like the evolution of custody technology in a minute. But first, JD, while we're on the subject of enabling partners to build crypto solutions, I want to hear some of your thoughts on just the challenges and maybe opportunities with custody as a service, wallet as a service type offerings. Particularly maybe around like user experience, security, and just hear about your experience there.
Yep, sure. I think there are three main things that we're trying to help developers with regards to our wallet as a service product. Okay, so the first one is user growth, then user retention, and the third one will be cost optimization. Okay, so in terms of user growth, so especially for apps like exchanges or wallets or any app that supports multiple tokens across multiple chains, like what Hayden said, many chains today, each chain has their own users. So any developer could use our API to instantly support multiple chains, multiple tokens with minimal development effort. So we do support over 70 chains and 1,800 coins. And it's not just being able to support a lot of them, but also to be able to support them very fast. Like you want to be one of the first few wallets or exchanges to have supported the Pepe coin, when those meme coins are very hot, and not just Pepe coin, but the whole range of those coins, because all these will attract users to your platform. Okay, if you're the first to be able to do this. So that's user growth. Second thing would be user retention, which is I think what Hayden mentioned a lot as well. It's all about managing the user experience for a lot of Web2 users who are not familiar with seed phrases, private keys, and so on. So utilizing APIs and stuff that you don't need to worry about the back end. We take care of the back end. You build the front end. You take care. You hold their hand. You pay gas for them and all these things, so that you make their day one. You make their onboarding and sign up experience very easy, just like Web2. Okay, yeah, and then they can log in with their email and password, because all these things are things that you manage on the front end, while the API that you leverage will take care of all the back end across multiple chains. And the last thing would be cost efficiency or cost optimization, and this one gets a little bit technical. So, and also, deals with how custody of user wallets works. Okay, in some sense. So what we also do is that, okay, so after your users all deposit tokens into all the different addresses and wallets, let's say you got 10,000 users, then you got 10,000 addresses to take care of. So what we also do over time routinely is to sweep all these user balances into a central pooled wallet. Okay, so once you have that, it's much easier to manage all your user funds in one big wallet than 10,000 wallets. That's one thing. And the second thing is that once all their balances are in a big wallet, now you can enable off-chain transactions between them. Okay, so when they're off-chain, of course, they'll be instant and free. Off-chain, because all you're doing is just adjust the ledger balance between one user to another. Okay, so, and this is also something that we do at no additional cost to the users, to our customers. So I would say that these are the main three things that we provide: user acquisition, retention, and cost optimization. And in terms of challenge with these solutions, because you asked about challenge as well, I think the main thing is, if you consider this a trade-off, then the trade-off is that, yes, this is not fully decentralized. My personal stance is that we don't need to, have full decentralization just for the sake of it. I think we're still at the early stages of blockchain and crypto adoption. I think the onboarding process, the good retention is a lot more important than just achieving full decentralization at this stage.
Got it. And I actually want to touch a little bit more on that last point and connect it. You said something you said earlier around being known as the one who has the newest feature releases. And so I guess, like, if your mandate is to focus kind of on the back end, and you say the front end is your client building out like a piece of technology or an application, how much of those back-end services are like really informing design decisions on the front end, and where is that like gradient of like, where do you kind of stop and let that builder start, and then how does that inform how they're going to their clients and pitching new feature upgrades or like new support capabilities? Like, what does that alignment look like with you and the client?
I think we are trying to accomplish two things. One is to help our customers secure their funds and their customers' funds, and they can manage this in a very easy way through our platform. And the second thing is really to be invisible. Okay, so it's just helping them start light but scale fast, and we're not visible to the end consumer at all. So it's completely up to. I mean, you can see that what Particle Network has one. They have many different kinds of designs of wallets, and it's customizable. And Jess and Hook, they have different designs of their wallets for each of the titles as well. Although the backend could be a similar backend. Yeah, so it's pretty customizable. Our job is to just help them scale but remain invisible.
Got it. Yeah, that's an interesting answer, and it makes sense. As I said earlier, I want to pivot a little bit into the technology and technological evolution within the custody market. And Tom, given your mandate as an investor is to have a bit of a bird's eye view on the trends there, I would like to just get your general views on like if you're seeing any promising solutions to user pain points, around smart contract wallets, MPC. What are the pros and cons of like these types of solutions? Are these the right solutions to be focusing on? Just what's your kind of high level view on some of this technology? Looks like we lost Tom. Curious if anyone else has thoughts on that, just given their role in the space. Otherwise, the next part of this, I wanted to dig a little bit into some of the feature differences between some of these offerings. So if anyone wants to kind of volunteer themselves, unless Tom's back to answer it. Hey, Tom, can you hear us? All right. Does anyone want to provide a view there, or should we move on to some of the product differentiation?
I'm okay to move on. I may address some of these in the follow-up questions.
Great. Okay, that makes sense. And if Tom is able to reconnect, we can ask him again. But I particularly wanted to talk to Hayden about Particle Network and the authentication and wallet services, which are really like intended to bridge kind of that Web2, Web3 gap. So like, what has been the response so far? And what are you hearing in the market?
Oh yeah, it's pretty. I think the response is pretty good, and a lot of clients who only use MetaMask or Rainbow Keys has transitioned into our approach and easily build up a very initial attraction from their targeted market. And so we used to have a client did basically benchmarking when comparing with a native MetaMask login solution comparing to our solution that combined with all the social login methods. So if the users only using the MetaMask to log in, because this client, they were trying to promote the product on some YouTube or Facebook for the users to get on board and going to experience the product. And those target users don't have any or have very few understanding or background knowledge about Web3. So if they were using MetaMask, I'd like to say, so the feedback he gave to us is only 10 to 50% of the user will keep to the next step after the login phrase. But if we allow them to using their email or their Google account to log in with the solution we provided, it's just a nature as a Web2 application. Normally, the login is never the barrier for users to get on board. And if you're thinking of the things that for you to invest in advertisement on such a social platform, usually it takes you some money for each user to click on your link. for example, if you go to Facebook, roughly like, for example, if you take $1 for getting each user to click onto your advertisement and starting using your app, but if the conversion rate is as low as 10% to 50%, that means like 10x of the overall cost for you to acquire one user. But if you are using a much easier, seamless onboarding process, then I think the cost will be controlled very perfectly. Yeah, so that's kind of like a real use case, a real case that we have heard from our clients. And I think that's kind of things that will also be kind of like a referral for all the other app builders when they were doing their marketing strategies. Yeah.
Nice. I mean, yeah, leading with a success use case is always sort of a successful strategy. So Jess, I'm kind of curious now from your perspective, on more of the user side, like how do you think about onboarding and what do like your personal strategies look like?
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting, echoing what Hayden just mentioned, right? Like in this space, what we need to tackle is to give people enough why would I want to interact with you or get onto Web3, and give them the exact right incentives at the right time to keep them more engaged. And that's kind of the genesis of our mission and our company. Actually, we got our name Hooked from the book Hooked by Near Eyal, I believe that's how he pronounces his last name. And we learned a lot from him and from our collective experiences in Silicon Valley life on how to build products that stick, right? And how to build new habits for users and onboard them that way. So actually leveraging a lot of the learning, one of the mantra is you either be useful, extremely useful, or to be extremely entertaining, right? So people have an incentive to stay with you. And in this case, we aim to be both. We want to be educational, but at the same time, doing it in a very fun and engaging way that you can't quit. Because education is one of the very important topic we might touch on later as well. Is also trending up in the Web3 space. But how to do it is the key, right? How do you incentivize people to learn, especially a topic that's right now sticking as a very technical level, like what is layer 1, what is layer 2, what is NFT? The topics could be quite dry. So that is our biggest challenge, and we are having a lot of fun dealing with it. As you could tell from our current product suite, we're experimenting with a lot of different methods of educational experiences. So overall, I would say there are 3 layers to our strategy that correspond to educate, engage, and empower. So on the very basic layer, as we mentioned, onboarding infrastructure is one of the biggest lacking gap, as Hayden and JD also agreed. That's what we are trying to tackle here. So by defining and designing the most simplest and frictionless user-friendly onboarding experience, it is the number 1 key, right? And luckily we have ecosystem players like Particles and Kobo to help us to build very easy to use, to integrate a D&D and a wallet and the initial toolkits basically to provide our users with an initial starting kit to navigate a Web3 world. And the second layer is we're building our own academy network, and by providing this on-suite of edutainment systems with the right incentives. So as mentioned, we have already apps and experiences that enjoy over 3 million active monthly users, and we're growing that community constantly, right, in our fast growth regions. So using these gamified techniques and combined with fun onboarding experiences and offering them the right rewards at the right moments to keep them engaged is what we're doing at the current layer of Academy. And moving forward, what we really want to achieve is to build an overall ecosystem, because we can't go on this road journey alone in onboarding the next billions of people just with the Hook solution, right? So that's why we're opening up the ecosystem to our partners in the space to enrich the education overall experiences. And we're already in a lot of discussions with exciting players in Web3, but also in Web2 companies who are looking to transition into Web3 space to see what we can do for them in terms of helping them with building their first Web3 experiences or building their first Web3 communities, leveraging our infrastructure and know-how. So these three pieces is how we put together to help us educate, engage, and empower the community.
It seems like a very comprehensive strategy, and I think those three pillars make a lot of sense. One thing that kind of stuck out is, mentioning going to 1 billion users, and immediately I'm kind of thinking of, there are probably a lot of different use cases and value props to Web3 that all these like new users would be seeing. So JD, getting back to like kind of the back end side, as these projects are potentially going to become a lot more like complex and diverse. Do you think there's going to be a need for like specialized wallet and custody solutions catering to like different industries or different use cases? Have you seen this already? Like, if so, it would be good to see some examples.
Yep, sure. We do see some usage patterns, like, your TradFi funds prefer to use centralized full custody and powered by hardware security modules, because that's more traditional, and they will want, sometimes they want the on-premise solutions as well. And then a lot of the trading firms tend to prefer MPC, okay? Whereas a lot of startups and DeFi teams typically use multi-sig or smart contract wallets. So one example of going deeper into specialized wallet needs, I would say, is in the area of DeFi, because DeFi has very specific common daily use cases. You go to claim your rewards, you do swapping, you provide liquidity, you stake your LP pairs, stake your LP tokens, and so on. Okay, so when for your typical smart contract wallets, the main security is just saying that, okay, we have multiple keys and we need at least 2 out of 3 keys to sign every transaction. So this is very secure. If you have 3 partners, 2 of them must sign. Okay, if just one person signing, that's not enough. Okay, so it's very secure, but it's also not very effective, because you cannot expect all the key holders, the key holders would be typically the bosses, to do all this daily DeFi work. Okay, but on the other hand, you cannot also give all these keys to every team member in the company. So what we've done with our smart contract wallet, which we call Corpo Argus, is that we've implemented very specific and very granular layer of role-based access controls. So this involves not just whitelisting smart contracts, but you're also able to whitelist specific functions inside all the major DeFi smart contracts like Aave, Uniswap, Compound, and so on. So now you can have different team members who are not the key owners to use the wallet to perform their specific roles with the DeFi smart contracts without them having to hold the keys and without any trade-offs in security. So I'd say this is for a very specific use case of smart contract wallets with DeFi.
Huh, pretty interesting. Tom, are you able to hear us? Can you, looks like you're on mute.
I can hear you, but I cannot hear the other participants, unfortunately. So happy to try my best to answer.
Okay, well then I will ask you a specific question that we've been itching to hear your answer to. But the context being, we've been talking a lot about different custody solutions and their use cases, and how that connects to like the go-to-market strategy for different applications in the space. But what I really want to get your perspective on is, like, as an investor, just like the bird's eye view on the state of like wallet and self-custody services in Web3. And really just to understand, like, particularly around like smart contract wallets, MPC solutions, like what are the pros and cons of like those implementations? Are there other implementations we should be thinking about? Just where do you kind of see the space today? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, I think in some respects, it's a little bit in reverse, where I think the market segment that you're addressing kind of dictates your go-to-market, and there can be sort of a matrix of different technologies and different customers effectively. So, in terms of funds and institutions like ourselves, when we think about custodians, historically it's been some of these more traditional cold storage players, like an Anchorage or a BitGo or Kingdom Trust, and those are now getting rolled into exchanges. And the issue with this obviously is if you want to do anything on chain, which is in the past, let's say 3 years, become more and more of a requirement, those custodians need to custom build those integrations to perform any sort of transaction on chain. So if I want to stake some of my tokens, or I want to participate in governance, I need to ask my custodian to allow me to make those types of transactions. And obviously, historically, it didn't really matter. You were just holding some Bitcoin in cold storage, and it was kind of doing its thing. And that naturally sort of opened the floodgates, I think, for these MPC-based custodians like a Fireblocks or a Credo or a Copper that allow funds like us to perform transactions on chain, just as we would with a normal EOA that we'd store in like a ledger or something like that. And it also lets us sort of bake the same security controls that we would want in place from a more traditional on-chain multi-sig like a Gnosis safe, but much more flexible and much more granular. And so that seems to be the current trend in terms of institutional custody, is everyone is rolling out their own MPC service. Coinbase just launched theirs a couple months ago. I think on the retail side, there is sort of more dispersion. Again, historically, it's been about like a software wallet, desktop or mobile, like a MetaMask, or a hardware wallet. And I think what we've seen is there are companies that are trying to go mass market with custody, like a Bitsky, for example. And the way they do this, obviously, some of them use HSMs, so not even MPCs, and it's obviously faster to get off the ground that way, but maybe not as long-term scalable. But the difference is, historically, they've tried to sell directly to consumers. So instead of using MetaMask or buying a ledger, I'd go sign up for Web3 auth or something like that and custody my funds with them. But instead, going for more of a B2B2C approach. So they sign contracts with large companies that are trying to go mass market, like a Adidas or a Starbucks, and that's their onboarding tool for their users. So if I want to go get my Starbucks NFT through the Starbucks app or Reddit, they're the ones actually spinning up the private key for me and custodying it. And that actually, gives you the same sort of experience that you would want from a Web 2 application of, being able to use OAuth and social sign-in or just email password, but still sort of having some of that same security. I think the smart contract wallet, in some respects, sort of dovetails with a lot of this. And I think obviously a lot of people are excited about 4337. Somewhat including myself. I guess in my mind, smart contract wallets have been around for a long time, even going back to like a DS proxy in Ethereum. The issue is like they haven't really been sort of widely accepted or integrated with other dApps. So if I want to, do an elliptic curve signature and have that recognized by, OpenSea or something like that, that doesn't really work. A lot of dApps block smart contract wallets from accessing their application to prevent flash loan attacks and stuff like that. And so, in some respects, smart contract wallets have been sort of kept out of the ecosystem and sort of intended to be used for cold storage. I think increasingly with sort of the user benefits of smart contract wallets, there's even people looking at ways to use 4337 to do different types of signature verification. So in theory, you could use your iPhone secure enclave or browser secure storage to do biometric signing. Or have a different signing key that allows you to do different types of things, or any sort of type of signature or sort of technique that you would use with an institutional custodian like Fireblocks, you could do on chain. And so that seems to be sort of the forefront when it comes to sort of consumer. And the question is, does that get baked into an existing wallet like a MetaMask, or is there an opportunity for new players to come on and sort of be that smart contract wallet for users? I think we're still sort of seeing how that's gonna pan out.
It's slightly adjacent, but you brought up 4337, and just as a investor in the space, I'm curious, like, have you seen any like particularly really interesting or promising applications that are like enabled by like account abstraction, and how is that sort of like manifested in like deal flow you guys have seen?
Yeah, it's funny. I used to run product at 0x before I was an investor, and account abstraction was something I've been hyped about for a long time because it solves a lot of the weird ergonomics around DEXs, like wrapping your ETH into ETH, or you setting your gas price too low and having your gas transaction get rejected. 4337, it doesn't really introduce any new technology. It's not a tech breakthrough. It's more of just creating a standard around what does it mean to be a smart contract wallet and introducing sort of standardized roles. I think for us, when we think about new startups, we have not done any smart contract wallet investments, kind of for the reason that I mentioned. It seems hard to sell this value prop to users, especially when if you're on Ethereum mainnet, the gas prices are actually going to be higher for the most part if using a smart contract wallet versus just using an EOA. And it's hard to sell people on security, right? And people don't like to think about tail risk and insurance. What they want to think about is, UX and, consumer surplus and what can this do for me today? And so when I think about 4337, it's kind of more about things like that, about being able to pay in arbitrary tokens or being able to, relay your transaction in a cheaper way by sort of waiting out, gas spikes or, scanning your transaction and simulating it to make sure that it's not doing anything malicious or, all these sorts of new signature schemes, allowing something like using your Face ID on your phone to, allow you to do sort of everyday transactions. All those kinds of things in my mind are like those ergonomic benefits are kind of what I think about when I think about what's new in 4337, and startups in those realms seem attractive. But I think just pure play smart contract wallets, it's very hard to get people onboarded or even to get people migrated. And so unless you have some distribution story, it seems like a tough play.
Got it. That makes sense. And appreciate that perspective. Wanting to go back to some of the builders in the space. I think this might be most relevant for JD or Hayden. But as Tom mentions, things like gas prices, just proliferation of other smart contract platforms. I can imagine there's like a huge demand for adding new chains, building in like interoperability capabilities into kind of your backends. Like, what are the challenges you guys face in doing that? Like, where do those bottlenecks exist? Is it just kind of like, paralyzing, adding functionality and features, or is there kind of like a broader interop strategy you guys are working towards?
Oh yeah, so for the interoperability, definitely this is a crucial part for Web3 ecosystem. Yeah, it matters this aspect matters a lot whether you are capable to keep up with the trend in the markets. So for us, we are constantly working to make sure our solution can communicate seamlessly with many different infrastructure providers. And I think also the key to achieving this interoperability is to adopt as much as open standards as possible. Yeah, and also fostering collaboration across the industry. Yeah, because even for us, many of our current use cases, our clients are still working, still already satisfied with our MPC solution, but we are also like proactively seeking for some opportunities to build up in the AA space. So yeah, just last month we announced the partnership with Bioeconomy to fostering the construction solution for our clients. So they can also leverage all the benefits from the construction's breakthrough. So yeah, and also I think that's kind of thing. And also by working closely with other players, and we can also identify ourselves and address any compatibility issue early on. So it's pretty important because the earlier you find there is an issue, it's better. If you can find the issue by doing it, that's even better. Yeah, so I think that's somehow we are getting through of all the interoperability so far.
Cool. JD, do you have any thoughts on this?
No, I think I'm good. I don't have anything to add on this one. No.
Cool. Well then, Hayden, while you're talking about kind of like thinking about like new integrations and chains, one thing I noticed is you guys built out a NFT marketplace and like specific infrastructure for that like market segment. Like, what are the unique challenges there? Like, what do you how does your prioritization differ based on like those types of users? Are they like doing different types of transactions? Like, how do you think about that?
Oh yeah, so for us, our team used to be working on Web2, especially on Web2 games. We built several products which happen to achieve 100 million users in the past. And when we come to Web3, we were also like starting with the initial motivation to serve some of the GameFi or gaming projects in Web3. So many of them because many games have NFT as their users' assets. So for that case, because for a startup project to build their own NFT marketplace is quite complex, because you have to set up the whole backend service, and also have to learn about all the open standard and understand what actually CPOL is used for, and how to build up the overall ordering and bidding system. So that could easily takes up to 1 or 2 quarters for your startup team to figure out how to build everything on that. But most of the projects, especially in the game, they don't have so many labor hours or such extensive resources to build on this. So we were kind of like prioritizing in-game or in-app NFT marketplace in the very first place. So that helped a lot of our clients to solve the issue on NFTs. Yeah, so for any projects that were trying to build on Web3, that to leverage their nature of the token and also decentralization is about, first of all, is the account system they have to take care, they have to take care of, because it's very different from the Web2 application. And another thing is how the user can manage their assets. So we are discussing about a lot of differences between Web2 and Web3. Those are the main 2 differences. So that was our priority in the past. And soon, if there are other needs coming up in the market, we will adapt to it as soon as possible. Yeah.
Got it. Okay, so Tom, filling you in, Hayden talked a little bit about like some of the unique use cases with NFTs, and one of the things that's obviously top of mind in the market is GameFi. And you know, when you think about blockchain games or any game in comparison with something like Bitcoin, you know, you're really reliant on like a centralized group or a company to like execute. Like you want to know who your AAA game devs are. So, you know, as we think about new use cases and like additional third-party solutions in the space, do you see like tensions between like decentralization and the kind of self-custody ethos of crypto, and then kind of like the reliance on third parties for either making like an offering or for like, you know, holding your hand in the custody and onboarding process? What would your guidance really like to startups be who have to like navigate this tension?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, it's always been a spectrum, and it's like any, you know, product, right? There'll be people who want sort of the, you know, industrial grade custody product like a fund, or, you know, someone who just wants to be extra secure. And there'll be people who will hold assets that are, you know, maybe not the most valuable, like a Reddit NFT or a, you know, gaming asset. And there it's, you know, maybe a little bit less crucial that, you know, the private key stays private. I mean, especially when you consider, let's say something like Ronin, it's like, well, you know, the chain itself is not even decentralized. So like, you know, what does it even mean to, you know, steal someone's assets or lose your private key? And, you know, you're also relying on a private binary, you know, the game itself to recognize your assets. And so, you know, really like the blockchain is a little bit of a, you know, a LARP. I think the maybe interesting thing is, you know, at some point allowing people to transition their private keys or transition their account over to a new custody provider. So, hey, let's say I onboard with, you know, one of these wallet as a service companies to get onto the, you know, Nike or Starbucks NFT platform, and then over time I decide I actually want to custody myself and maybe move some money in. Being able to do that without having to, you know, move all of your assets to a brand new key or address would be, you know, really nice. I do think though that like there is maybe a sort of a little bit of a misconception. Like I don't think the people who are, you know, buying Reddit NFTs or minting Reddit NFTs today are like going to start swapping on Uniswap to market tomorrow. I think they're in some respects very different demographics. And so, you know, the idea that you would need to do that in the near future seems a bit off. So yeah, I think overall you do have to kind of find where you land on that spectrum between, you know, ease of use and maximum security.
And I guess like as a follow-up in that sector, it might be a little bit of a tangent, but Tom, when you're thinking about like investments in that space, given that there is like more the trade-off kind of like lends itself more towards hand-holding help people adopt like in the like NFT and gaming space. Like where do you think as an investor is like the best way to capture value there? Like, is it picking winners in games? You know, if so, is it equity? Is it looking at tokens? Is it NFTs for like gaming assets? Is it like, you know, a directional bet on gaming via like PFPs that could be used in games? Like, or is it some infrastructure? Like, how do you prioritize like the best way to like capture value on that emerging trend?
Yeah, I mean, this might be a spicy take, but we have not done many gaming investments. I think overall we're a bit skeptical of the category. There have not really been any winners, period, that have ever worked. And so I think there are some opportunities for teams that, you know, have a novel product and it uses crypto in some novel way. It's not just, hey, let's make a MOBA and make the, you know, skins NFTs and call it a day. I don't think it's a very compelling product, and you know, it's very expensive to build. But you know, when we do investments, you know, we do think about, okay, are we going to wait for a winner to emerge and sort of pick the winner? I think that generally works in a more commoditized marketplace. Is there somebody who has a clear tech or distribution play? You know, trying to back them early. Is this an area where we think value is going to capture to a different layer? Maybe we try to invest into that layer instead. But I think generally when we do early stage investments, you know, we almost always invest with, you know, into equity plus a token warrant. I think it's kind of a mistake for teams to lock into, you know, one path early on. Maybe it makes sense for you to issue a token down the line. Maybe it doesn't. But I think deciding that upfront is kind of restrictive, and we want to sort of give teams, you know, that freedom and flexibility.
Yeah, I feel like the token equity thing was like the major topic on conference panels with investors over the past like 2-3 years, especially as like a lot of these governance tokens like did not perform great and kind of had flawed launches. So that guidance makes sense. While we're talking about kind of like, you know, guidance for companies, I guess. JD, maybe you kick us off, but curious to hear like the broader group's perspective. You know, what do you think have been like the biggest missteps maybe of companies that are building in crypto? And like what advice would you just generally give them?
I'd say to just focus on the core proposition of their app. Okay, I think a lot of companies may be thinking too much about the token metrics, the liquidity, the trading volume, and so on. I think actually, well, just now Hayden said, you know, their previous company, they built games for hundreds of millions of users or 100 million users. You don't have apps at this scale yet on Web3, right? And so I think that's because of two things. I think the content itself, the use cases have not been very clear to attract users and to retain users over time. And the second thing is everyone's talking about decentralization and getting away from Apple and Google fees. But to be honest, without Apple and Google and Facebook, what's the effective way to acquire Web3 users? There's none. So I think you may be Web3, Web4, Web5, but it still comes back down to the core basics of building an app that sticks, having good retention, having scalable distribution.
Cool. Jess, you seem to kind of light up when I was talking about, you know, missteps of companies. You know, for you guys focused more at the application layer, like, are there any like mistakes you guys may have made? Or is there any guidance you would have to like other businesses?
Yeah, actually, totally echoing what JD just mentioned. We would definitely, because we're partners, right? And along the way, we also discussed some of the pitfalls. And one of the things I learned very quickly is like, don't build a car in a garage, basically. Like, put out prototypes and talk to users, and then it's okay to fail kind of publicly, which is a very new sort of experiences, right? Because community is like the heart of any Web3 projects, and from the very beginning, we're not really sure at what stage should we share our journeys and our products. And what we realize is people don't really judge you based on what you put out at the very beginning. And in the Web3 community, they're very open to the idea of pivoting and course correcting. And what they really value is that you share and be transparent enough. So in the beginning, we spent a lot of time trying to find the best depth there is to onboard millions of users, right? And what we learned along the way is that actually you don't have to get there from the very beginning. And throughout the trial and error period, and by listening to our community, we actually organically grow our community that way, just by tuning in and listening to what each market's feedback is. So that's what we learned, is that we don't have to go on ourselves alone. And on the flip side of it, not a flip side, but not a user side, but on the building side, we also have the same learning, right? At the very beginning, we try to build everything ourselves, and it's quite, it's a lot of heavy lifting, as Hayden mentioned. And then we realized that, hey, there's tons of very interesting and very talented people in this field that we can leverage and grow together. And we're still in this very nascent state where we're trying to figure out the best solutions and the best ways to go with a partner. And in that way, you can go faster and further along. So yeah, we are still learning. We're still a very early stage startup and trying to provide the next experience that transform the user experience. And we realized that we don't have to go on this journey on our own.
Awesome. Thanks for that insight. And I think that's like a perfect closing note. You know, I think right now is like a really interesting time to be like talking about these trade-offs, just given, you know, as we're seeing like new types of applications, it's informing new types of like ways of thinking of, you know, where the like things further down the stack might need to be more opinionated versus like where there's sort of standardizable templates. So it was really interesting to hear your guys's perspective on that as the builders. You know, given this is all moving really quickly, would like to just close by, you know, each of you guys just quickly sharing best place to find you, best place to find updates on your projects and companies. Tom, why don't you just start, given
Sure.
you're on an island?
Yeah. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm Tom H. Schmidt.
Awesome. Jess, how about you?
Please follow us on Twitter at Hooked Protocol, and we're also sharing actively on Medium under the same handle. That's a little bit for the nerdy type that that's looking into graphs and more detailed updates. So yeah, Twitter and Medium.
Right. For us, you can follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah. For Twitter, same as yeah. But we also have Medium.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining. Thanks to you four for kind of answering some of these questions, and look forward to chatting sometime soon. Yeah.
Thank you.